Unity was to be a fresh start for Assassin's Creed. It was intended as a next-gen reinvention of the series, where it would get to shed a lot of dead weight, dump all the continuity garbage, and revitalise a creaking monolith that had been a terminal sufferer of the dreaded franchise fatigue. You've got to hand it to Ubisoft, it's taken them less than a decade to inspire levels of ennui that took Star Trek about 30 years.
How many people does it take, Admiral, before it becomes wrong?
A good rule of thumb that you can borrow from Star Trek here is that when people start referring to your IP as a franchise instead of a series, there's probably a bit too much of it knocking about. Unity, rather than being the game to make Assassin's Creed exciting and brilliant again, came with its own roster of problems, failed to fix issues that had been plaguing the series from day one, and was besieged by a string of PR cock-ups dating back to before it was even on the shelves, but culminating in a situation where Ubisoft are now giving away a premium single-player DLC campaign for free by way of an apology. And let's not forget, this isn't horse armor, this is premium single-player DLC with a new area, a new campaign. This is a big deal to be giving away for nothing. In short, Unity has been a bit of a disaster, which I think is a massive shame because there's so much about Unity that I love. I think Arno is the best protagonist the series has had since Ezio. I think the artistry of Digital Paris is generally astounding, and it did get a lot of things right. Awful relics like eavesdropping missions were dropped, the modern day portion of the story, a constant bugbear, got stripped down to a few short cutscenes, and the set pieces were marvellous. I thought that the good parts were so good, so redeeming, that I gave it a good score and genuinely really enjoyed it. I still stand by that, even though there's probably a few people out there who think I deserve to be punched in the face for having that view. Unfortunately, Dead Kings doesn't celebrate what Unity did right. In fact, it's a constant reminder of everything it did wrong. The setting of Dead Kings, a northern suburb of Paris known today as Saint-Denis, is horrible. The gorgeous sunsets, the endless rooftop vistas, those things don't exist here. It's a shitehouse draped in fog and vermin infested. This is all historically necessary, of course, as the town did go through some horrifically bad times just after the revolution, but it's not a great start. The first bite, as they say, is with the eye, and this is like looking at a shaft of frozen piss. I'm not talking on a technical level here, although you can expect the same performance and glitching issues as in the main game, but Saint-Denis, unavoidably, isn't very nice. So what's in it for Assassin's Creed fans? Nobody else is going to give a toss, but even for the faithful, the answer amounts to very little. The most exciting thing about it, and I use that word extremely loosely, is what it hints at for the future of the series. From here on in, by the way, there are some spoilers. When you get to Saint-Denis, you'll be roped into an Indiana Jones adventure to find an ancient artifact that's locked away in the catacombs beneath the town before Napoleon gets his hands on it. Obviously, this artifact was left down here by the precursors. Specifically, it's another Apple of Eden, and we know from Unity that Napoleon already has an Apple of Eden.
Incredible.
And that it's not the same one that Ezio had, because that one was still under the Colosseum when all this revolution shite was going on. It's heavily suggested that his rise to power is eventually aided, if not ensured, by this and possibly other precursor technologies. In another prime example of Assassin's Creed's questionable habit of taking the talents of history's greatest achievers and reducing them to found MacGuffin. At the start of the DLC, it's revealed that the Marquis de Sade has offered to get Arno on a boat to Egypt if he doesn't fanny about. And as the game's codex points out, Napoleon will cement himself as a hero of the Republic after a successful campaign in Egypt. Indeed, we know from AC Initiates that some years later, Arno will foil a royalist assassination attempt on Napoleon in Cairo. But, big spoiler alert now, Dead Kings also suggests, right at the end, that Arno ends up not going to Egypt immediately after some Saint Denis as planned, but sends the second Apple of Eden to the assassin's mentor in Cairo via a really dodgy looking courier who looks like he could even be a sage because of the eyes. Are you still with me? All signs appear to point to Cairo, and if I didn't know any better, I'd be convinced right now that Cairo is going to be the next location in the series, but we know it isn't because the next one's going to be set in Victorian London. So, are these signposts to Egypt just fleshing out the lore rather than teasing a future game? Or could these be hints as to the nature of planned but now cancelled single-player DLC for Unity? Or did they plan a number of games centering around Arno Dorian and his relationship with Napoleon? A relationship which is mentioned in the Codex as being quite a significant one in both men's lives. Who knows, this stuff could mean anything, everything, or absolutely nothing, but it's fun to speculate. However, signs and portents aside, it's hard to get excited about the future of Assassin's Creed when Unity was supposed to be the start of that future, and they kinda cocked it up. I say this as a massive fan of the series, one who isn't unaware of its faults, but a massive fan nonetheless. Going back to Dead Kings itself, the signature features of this DLC, namely the setting, the catacombs, and the fact that it's an epilogue that's clearly designed to bridge towards some future story, are so underwhelming that I'm tempted to think that whatever asking price this did have before it was repurposed into an apology was going to be far too high. For what it's worth, it does add quite a lot of mission content to the game. This includes new murder mysteries and story side quests, but it's doubtful that many will be inclined to do them after ploughing dozens of hours into what was arguably a repetitive and overlong main game. There are no lore-shattering revelations to be had, and the big climax is a redux of that bit at the end of Brotherhood where Ezio has the Apple of Eden and everyone dies, and it all ends rather like the main game did, with a shrug and a slow tracking shot around some underground ruins, overlaid with credits that take 1 billion years to scroll.
How many people does it take?
I'm left wondering if Ubisoft would have been better off refunding all the season passes and just cancelling Dead Kings altogether. As a piece of premium DLC, it would have been forgettable and not worth the cash. As an apologetic freebie, it feels memorable for all the wrong reasons and not worth your time. Dead Kings serves as a reminder that as a reinvention, Unity simply failed. That doesn't mean it was a terrible game. It's certainly nowhere near as bad as certain quarters make out, but it didn't achieve what it set out to do, and rather than rejuvenating the series, it damaged the franchise's public opinion almost irreparably, to the point where the next game is going to have to be a stone-cold masterpiece to turn its fortunes around. For that reason, Unity is best consigned to the dustbin of history, so we can move on and go back to the business as usual of hoping the next game is up to snuff. Unfortunately, I can't help but feel that however good it is, it won't be good enough. Maybe it's time to give it a rest.
Hello, if you enjoyed that video, please do consider subscribing. We've put a little button here that you'll be able to click. There's an annotation somewhere here, I don't know exactly where. And you can click that and see the videos that we upload in the future. Thanks.
Who are you talking to?